Okay, so as I say, there's a few extra little things that I want to show you here related to creating your rectangles and your squares. First of all, you'll notice as we're creating our shapes here inside Corel that there's no color on the shapes. There's what we would call a pen or an outline or a stroke, some people call it a stroke, around the outside of the object, this black edge here. But that's about it. There's no fill color. We'll get into working with color much later on, so you'll understand how this works. But just keep that in mind, that this is kind of the default look of your shapes, okay? Now, there's a few other things that I want to show you here, but before I get into that, I'm going to hit Control A once again, and then I'll hit Delete here once again on my keyboard to get rid of all that junk. And like I say, I want to show you a couple of other quick things here. Remember down at the bottom of your screen, that status bar, it says double-click the tool to create a page frame. What's that all about? Well, you know what I'll do here is I'll zoom out. I'll head up to the top of my interface, and I'll drop down my zoom menu, and I'll just choose to page. There we are. And then let's check out this thing called a page frame. So what I'll do here is I'll head over to the toolbox and I'll double click on the rectangle tool, just like the status bar was instructing me, and notice that now we have a rectangle the size of your page, which is extraordinarily cool. Again, if you're creating a lot of layouts, maybe a CD cover, a DVD cover, a flyer, whatever, and you want to have perhaps a background color, a solid background color that's going to kind of sit behind your entire design there. So anyway, very cool stuff. So you can certainly play with that. Once again, though, I'm going to hit delete on my keyboard just to get rid of that fella. All right, I want to show you one more thing here. What I'll do is I'll go and drag out another rectangle or a square. You can draw out a square if you want. And maybe what I'll do is I'll zoom in on this fella just so we can see him a little bit closer here. Maybe something like this. And I wanted to walk you through some of the settings that we now have available running across the top of our screen on the CorelDRAW property bar, this guy here. And as you can see, there's lots of options here. So again, the whole idea here in Corel is to keep your eyeballs on this properties bar, because he's going to be changing. He's dynamic, right? Depending on what tool you have selected, depending on what content you have selected, right? So let's take a look here. We have X and Y coordinates starting off here on the left-hand side. And I just said not too long ago that I wouldn't inundate you with X and Y coordinates. All that is positioning, right? So if you want to more precisely position your object inside your layout, you can do so using X and Y coordinates if you wish, right? So that's the location of the object on your page. All right, now next up we have the width of the object and the height of the object. And you know, if you want to try any of these out, go for it. Maybe what I'll do is I'll reduce the width of my object down to 4 inches. Just hit enter on your keyboard to lock in that change. And then maybe what I'll do is I'll do the same thing for the height. I'll round that down to 4 inches as well. There's a kind of another way to create a square, by the way. So anyway, there you go. So you can certainly use these guys if you want, or you can scale your object. Well, I want the height of my object to be 120% of his current size, you know, something like this. Or I want it to be 90% of the current size. Anyway, you can mess with that if you want. Certainly cool stuff. You can rotate your objects if you wish. Maybe I'll put this guy on a 15-degree angle, or maybe a 30-degree angle, or really whatever the heck I want, right? Or maybe I'll bring this guy all the way back to 0, all the way back to the beginning, right? So there you go. You can fiddle with that fella if you want. We have some mirroring options. In other words, we can flip this guy. We can flip him horizontally, or we can flip him vertically. Now, we're not going to really see too much of a change here if I go and try and flip this guy here, but you can certainly try these guys out as we progress and work our way through CorelDRAW. Okay, now the last item that I wanted to show you here is this group of settings here. There's actually 4 of them. These 4 boxes here. We can actually set the corner roundness, or what I might call the corner radius on my object. So maybe something like this, and I'm just clicking on this up arrow here, and I'm at 14, 15, 17, 19, and you can see I'm rounding the corners here, right? Now all the corners, all 4 corners are locked to one another. That's being determined by this fella right here. If I unlock that guy, then what I can do is I can set the individual corners sort of independently of one another, if you know what I mean. So maybe something like this, right, where I want the top left corner and the bottom right corner rounded, but I want the opposite corners to not have any roundness on them, something like that. So anyway, take a moment, fiddle around with these different settings, get comfortable with them, and then I'll show you how to draw ovals and circles.
To change your